help all people involved in honors all around the world to make programs that are good and well equipped for our students, because that's the main aim, that we can create together education that really supports our students. This morning, I had a very unique experience for myself. I am the co-promoter of a lady in Austria who worked on a dissertation, and that is Sarah Hinterplatter. She is among us, and this morning we had an online dissertation defense. And that's quite something. And I'm very proud to announce that Sarah Hinterplatter from Austria is now a doctor, and that she really defended very, very, very well. She got a very good, and I think she's one of the first outside the Netherlands in Europe that had a defense on honor students and how they perceive waiting time in class. And I think if we can reduce waiting time, we can augment deep learning. So we have a real expert now amongst us. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
For 5 years now, we did Honors International Faculty Institute. And we were planning to have this institute also after the International Honors Conference in the Netherlands in June. And that was John Zubizarreta, Beata Jones, and myself. And it's our shirt that we always wear during this occasion. However, caused by Corona, we were not able to do this Honors International Faculty Institute. And we decided, the three of us, to create HIFLO. And this is our second HIFLO session. And it's Honors International Faculty Learning Online. And we are really honored to have you amongst us. And we, as you maybe know, this HIFI is based on the honors pedagogy that's written in this Teaching for Excellence, Honors Pedagogies Revealed. And that's an international study to create a signature pedagogy for honors, saying that there are three main teaching strategies that help to foster the talents of our students. That's first of all enhancing academic competence. It's secondly create community, and thirdly it's offering bounded freedom. And we decided to also create this HIFLO on those three kind of pillars. And so our first session was on creating community, and this session will be on deep learning, because we think it's extremely important to talk about deep learning also online. Of course, when we talk about deep learning, creating community is also important. We are a community already, because we are proud about the work of Sarah. We are with 6 countries here and 29 institutions. I think that's huge that we are so together here. However, this session, we will focus on deep learning and how we can create assignments for our students to promote deep learning among our students by experiencing it ourselves. So, Beata, can you maybe introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Beata Jones. I'm a faculty in Business Information Systems at Texas Christian University. I have been associated with the honors at my university for the past 15 years, and I currently serve as the chair of the Professional Development Committee for the National Collegiate Honors Council. John?
Hi, I'm John Zubizarreta. Everybody just calls me John Z because of the impossible last name. I'm at Columbia College in South Carolina. I am a former president of the NCHC. I'm currently the co-chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee, and I've been in honors for more than, well, 30 years.
And we would love to welcome everybody else. We're going to have an opportunity to share in our breakout rooms, in teams, all the details of what university everybody is representing and how long they have been associated with honors. But here's just a quick map to show you our learning community. that is so important to honors. We have we're spanning 12 different time zones from Hawaii at 4 a.m. Anna, I think is it 4 p.m.? No, it's 4 p.m. in Europe. And Anna, are you 2 time zones?
It's 9 p.m. here in Novosibirsk City. Yeah, so right in the middle of Siberia.
Yes, more than, oh, well, it's 17 time zones, right? 17 time zones that we're spending. So this map is available. You're going to get this deck at the end of the session. This map is available in our PowerPoint deck as well as in Google Maps. And if you wonder how you can create a map for your community of learners, there are also instructions for how to do that. So let me tell you a little bit about our journey. You can see what we have planned for today. What we have promised is that we're going to provide opportunities for engaging conversations, some examples of effective virtual teaching and learning, as well as sharing of resources and tools, and opportunities to exchange ways to enhance learning with remote honors. So that was our objective. That is what we promised. And this is the journey ahead of us for the next hour and a half. So I'm going to let John tell you a little bit about our engagement for success.
Yeah, I think a lot of these tips are pretty common now that our lives have been dominated by Zoom and other platforms, similar platforms. But just some reminders while we're in Zoom and working throughout the seminar. We would appreciate if you kept your video on. I know sometimes people prefer not to do that, but in the interest of community, we would love to see you. And of course, mute your microphone. I see many people already have their microphones mute. You've already been conditioned by Zoom. And if you want to speak, just raise your hand or use a hand feature to let us know if you want to say something or respond. And then, of course, the Zoom also has the chat feature, which allows you to put in questions or make comments. And of course, it's very difficult to pay attention and respond to people visually while at the same time keeping up with the chats. Well, we'll do the best that we can, and we expect that you will too. And of course, smile. You're on the camera. Raise your hand if you need to speak. And then there's some other things to think about that sometimes we don't think about. But if you're having some bandwidth issues, sometimes what helps is to turn off other devices in your home. If you have a spouse or a friend or a child who's out there gaming or using up a lot of bandwidth, you might want to ask them to turn it off while we're having the seminar. And who knows what happens here in South Carolina. We get thunderstorms regularly. So if something happens and I drop out or you drop out, just try to get back in as soon as you can. That would be great. And remember that all this is being recorded. Eventually, we'll put it up on YouTube, so you'll have lots of easy access to it. And that's about it for now. So I'm going to turn it back over to Beata, who will tell you a little bit about the tools that we're going to be using, online tools.
So, John, can I add one thing?
Sure.
The recording will be used on YouTube. We will use it for educational use and also for research use.
So this is just a brief outline of the tools that we plan to offer for an opportunity to engage in a virtual environment. We're using the Zoom main room. The chat is always helpful if you would like to send just some hello to everybody. We will be using breakout rooms for teamwork with a whiteboard if you so choose to, or perhaps some other tool. Marco will engage us with a polling tool called Mentimeter. Of course, we'll use Google Drive. I sent earlier today the link that you see here on the right, where our PowerPoint from the session that's edited with all the results and outcomes and pictures of the session will be uploaded to the Google Drive. There are some handouts there. The chat log from today will be uploaded as well. There's already a HIFLO 2020 document with some HIFLO helpful resources that we have been curating. So if you have any ideas, any links to contribute, please do so. I also sent an invitation to Slack. This is just a back channel to when you're working in your breakout rooms and you want to engage the whole community, perhaps you do so if you want to. If not. We will use YouTube. And of course, there are other tools that you may choose to use to make your work easier today. So just a hint, there is work ahead of us. So John, let's move on to the topic for today, and that is, what is deep learning?
Okay, so we're moving along at a pretty fast pace. I think you can probably understand why. With limited time, there's a lot that we want to do with you that will be interactive coming up. So in the interest of just some quick summaries, you know, the seminar is about deep learning, and there's a lot of different ways of defining deep learning. But if you know D. Fink's work, the book is called Significant Learning, and it's a very, very well-known book in teaching and learning circles. And Dee has developed a taxonomy that builds on the Bloom's taxonomy and adds several other features to it. But if you look at Fink's work, you'll see that what he's talking about in terms of creating significant learning is creating an environment in which students can reach for certain kinds of outcomes, and then our job is to figure out how to get them there. So it's another way of talking about backward design, where you ask the question, what do we want students to learn? How are they going to get there? What do we want them to do? And what do I need to do in and out of the classroom to achieve that deeper learning? And then if you combine that with some of the information about the pedagogical strategies for what many call authentic learning, then you combine those two, significant learning with authentic learning, and Beat is going to have a little bit more to say about that in just a minute. If you combine those two pedagogical models, if you will, our feeling is that then you arrive at enhanced academic competence, which is perhaps another way of saying deep learning that is transformative, that's relevant, and that's lasting. So with that, as just a quick model, we'll move on and put in a little bit more information about each of them. So significant learning, as I said, comes from the work of D. Fink. He has a very significant book that you can, of course, purchase, but there's also a self-directed guide that's 30 some odd pages, and it's free, and it's online, and we've provided the link. And it gives you a step-by-step approach to designing courses in order to achieve that deeper learning. And this is an image of his taxonomy. And if you're clever, you can see that on the right side of the taxonomy are all the features of the Bloom's taxonomy, right? But then Dee added some of the other dimensions of significant learning, which happen to all be on the left side of the design. And these are the affective ones that involve reflection and emotion, you know, all those features of learning that sometimes we tend to forget because we're so wrapped up, so focused on delivering content and doing the designing exams and grading them and so forth. And we forget that there are these human dimensions to learning that involve caring and learning, of course, how to learn. That's the reflective component, the critical reflective component. So the Dee's taxonomy is a very useful model to keep in mind when you're designing courses, because you want to start with what you want students to learn and do, and then work backwards to figure out, you know, what kinds of strategies am I going to use? What kind of pedagogy am I going to lean on to make deeper learning happen? And in fact, the last thing you design is the syllabus, which is the reverse of what most of us have always done. You know, When I had a new course, I made a syllabus, and then I went from there. This is the reverse of that, which I think it makes a lot of sense. So authentic learning has some other smaller features, some other interesting features, and I'll let Beata tell you a little bit about that.
Thank you, John. So once you know where you're going, once you look at, think, and decide where you want to be in that taxonomy, where on the circle, which slice of the pie you're going to tackle, then you want to operationalize it. So you can think about these, again, helpful strategies to help you operationalize that deeper learning. So what is going to be the subject of learning? Is it going to have real world relevance? Is it some ill-defined problem? Does it have multiple sources of information and perspective? And then look at the process of learning. Are we going to put you through a sustained investigation process? Will it involve collaboration and reflection? Are there going to be, again, interdisciplinary perspectives? Well, what will be the result of learning? Will there be a polished product at the end? Will there be an integrative assessment and multiple interpretation? And again, this is all based off research, and there's another link here if you'd like to read more about authentic learning. And we believe that significant learning outcomes, the work of DThink and the authentic learning model is going to help us enhance our students' academic competence, which is what Marco will tell you about. Marco, we cannot hear you.
That's all. Sorry. So in order to enhance academic competence, there are different strategies that you can use that make that combination of authentic learning and significant learning. And when you design a student assignment, it's always important to, first of all, look at what is the outcome you want and what kind of product do you want the students to create. But thinking of yourself, what kind of deep learning do you think that you can, for instance, achieve when you stimulate critical and independent thinking, when you foster this research attitude, and if you set learning tasks that are really challenging. And to know what is really challenging, of course, you have to talk with your students, you have to know them, and also that's part of this community you create. But also when you want to have this real breadth of learning, it's important to have this interdisciplinary point of view, and to be honest, I would say nowadays even a transdisciplinary point of view. So that means that you do not only include different disciplines and that you don't only have a task that's interdisciplinary, but that you include the outside world within your group of people. Maybe in co-creation you look for a solution, but also that you have a task that is challenging, not only from the academic point of view, but also for the social point of view. And then you really make a combination of authentic learning and deep learning. And this is also challenging because very often it's about problems that we really do not know how to solve them. So that we really place our education in a future that's all the time changing. And this change, this kind of future literacy, is part of our program. I think I leave it for here. Thank you.
Okay, so let me come on back with some more information, more ideas about designing for deep learning. DThink gives us a very good start. But if you look at some of the information that comes from the Corwin folks, they have a book, of course, which you can purchase, but there's a really good amount of information that you can find in the website that we have on the bottom of the slide. And basically, what we learned from this is that designing for deep learning, according to the Corwin model, involves us in working with 4 different kind of domains, if you will. And you're probably, asking some questions about, well, what do these domains look like? What are we talking about here? And so I want to tell you a little bit about what each one, what they say each one involves, and then project another slide afterwards to show you how we are using the model to engage you in this seminar. But first, their model suggests that in order to design for deep learning, you have to think about, of course, learning partnerships, which is another way of saying collaboration, sharing of information. And for me, that really means collaborative learning, which in its most basic definition, according to Ken Bruffy, who wrote the book on collaborative learning, it's not so much about group work, it's about sharing the authority of knowledge and involving students in a collaborative and interdependent model of teaching and learning, so that the teacher and the students become, in a sense, co-creators, co-constructors of knowledge. And that's something that's very important for deep learning, according to Corwin and according to me. They also talk about learning environments, and that's basically what they say is creating an environment, and this is especially true in a virtual situation, remote or online teaching and learning, an environment that is safe, that is generative, that's inclusive, all of those things, and as well as active, right? If you put all those together, then you're really paying attention to the learning environment that can be a way of designing for deep learning. And then they talk about the importance of leveraging the digital tools that we have at our disposal, all kinds of things that we can use in order to help students enhance their learning and hold on to it. And then we're doing some of that, as you'll see in a minute. But also, finally, the pedagogical practices, those will be the strategies, the approaches that we use, the theories that we lean on in order to help us design activities, exams, writing assignments, portfolios, all those kinds of pedagogical strategies or approaches that we use in order to design for deep learning. So how are we using the model? If Beata will switch the slide, you'll see that in this seminar, we're of course involving you as peers, a form of collaborative learning through the chat particularly, and later through the group work. We'll be sharing a lot of information that can be of benefit to all of us. So we are co-creating as peers. We're of course paying attention to the learning environment. We're trying to use Zoom in a very productive and generative way, and respecting the diversity of our 6 different countries and languages and time zones. Not with apologies to Siobhan in Hawaii, who's on at 4 a.m. But we are using lots of digital tools in this very seminar that you hopefully will use, if you haven't already been using them in your courses, to leverage the digital world. And then, of course, we're using a variety of pedagogical practices, project-based learning, because one of the features of this seminar is that we're going to have you interactively work together to actually design an assignment and then later on showcase it and show off. So it's project-based, it's collaborative, we're constructing knowledge together, and we're hoping that the 4 areas that we have pre-selected for you to work within will reflect some of the diversity and some of your own passions. So that's designing for deep learning by using the Corwin model. And then we can now shift over to a really cool digital tool called Mentimeter, and Marka is going to lead us through the exercise that will help flush out some additional pedagogical practices, perhaps, that you may have gleaned from looking at and pondering the YouTube videos from the co-talent people. Marka?
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen.
Yes.
Do you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Wait. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So you all have your phone with you, I hope, and otherwise you have to switch screens. And I would like to ask you to type in menti.com, and then you can you can see that you can put in a code, and please put in this code. So, is there anyone who has a problem doing this? I think it works well. And I will go to the first question. So, because then we will see how many people reached out for it. So, based on the co-talent movies, I all hope you watched them. What strategy for deep learning or enhancing academic competence stood out for you? So, there are 2 times you can fill in a word. And, well, go ahead. So you see a word cloud, and you also see what we as a group think that has been important or that really stood out. So creativity is an important one. You also see collaboration. I think that that's really an important thing that was mentioned in the movies as well. And also creative thinking is mentioned. Well, someone is very, very honest and saying, sorry, I wasn't able. We do understand it's all very, very busy. If you weren't able, doesn't matter. You can make the assignment anyway, but it's worth looking at the movies later on. Trial and error, I think that's also a very correct, something that really stood out from the movies. So when you are going to design your own assignment for the students, those kind of strategies are things to think of. So how do you really foster this creativity, and how do we engage students in collaboration? So we go to the next question. What promotes deep learning for yourself? So that's nice. Various people say time for reflection, challenge, time for space and introspection. So the reflection part is really coming up, but also that we need time. And that's also something that I think we should realize when we design an assignment, because very often we are doing more and more and more and more, while maybe less is more. And maybe when we design an assignment, it's important to include time for students to think or to get inspiration. Someone also is saying constant focus on some issues, and that's I think that's very often shared with by the students, that that's important. And it's also a difficult one, because very often they have all kinds of courses. Time to think and passion for a topic, and others I can share ideas with. Also, that's the sharing of ideas, time. So I think that's a very important word coming back over and over again. For deep learning, you need time. And I think as teachers, very often we are afraid that when we give them time, our students, they will do other things. So, and then they're not learning very deeply. So how to stop this and let it go, and really empower the students to take this time. And when you're in your breakout rooms, I really encourage you to talk about this issue when you are designing an assignment. Do we trust our students enough to really give them this time? So is there one person who would like to reflect on and someone said freedom and safety. And also the safety part could be important.
Well, actually, Marco, that was my contribution.
Ah, that's funny.
Can I pass to somebody else?
Yes, of course. Of course. I would like the opportunity to practice with a mentor looking in and guiding, but not leading necessarily. Who was the one saying this? And are you willing to reflect upon this?
Sure. I'm taking a couple of different courses right now, so I am continuing to be this adult learner and trying to do it in this space that young people are doing without the same ability to be a digital native like they are. So I'm learning on two folds. I'm learning the technology and learning the new way of learning. So I have found over the time of this, and I'm putting in maybe 40, 50 hours on one course right now. And it's the times I have learned the most and the learning that has lasted the longest, where I feel like I've actually got it. It's a part of my repertoire, was when somebody taught me something, said, now go practice this in various ways, then bring it back and show me what you did. Then we'll walk through another one together and I'll look over your shoulder a little bit, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to say, you might want to think about, or have you considered? And then I created for myself. So it puts it into the tapestry of your being when you're doing it with your own two hands and your own mind. And then at the end, you can compare notes of, did I get the best outcome you were hoping for? And if not, why not? But that process was so incredibly critical for me. And I'm getting better. I'm not a native, nor never will be, but I'm getting better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very nice example of deep learning as well. So thank you. So I think we should stop now with this Mentimeter. I'm going to do stop sharing and I give it over for the next slide. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Dee, for the comments, because they bring us to the task at hand that we have designed for today's session. And that is our adventure in deep learning. Our adventure in deep learning asks teams that we have created prior to today's meeting to create solution for a world on fire. And we want you to consider the current reality of a pandemic and the 4 select sustainability goals we ponder over it. We thought maybe we give you all 17, but decided no, we're going to bound it a little bit because there's really no time to talk about 17. It's much easier to pick when you work on a project from 4 that are broadly defined, and that is good health and well-being, quality education, reduced inequalities, and climate action. So think about the pandemic, think about health issues, education, inequality, and climate. And then please consider using your diverse backgrounds, your passions, online resources. So please remember, you can Google everything and anything. And various pedagogical practices that you use in your day-to-day teaching that you got a hint of from the Co-Talent movies, and any other online tools other than the ones that we're going to provide you to. And here's the assignment. Design a deep interdisciplinary learning student assignment that results in a product in an online honors course named Creating Solutions for a World on Fire. Right, so this is what we're going to ask you to do, and here's how we're going to structure this assignment, just as Dee mentioned. So we talked about, we shared some deep learning theory practices, and now we would like to put you into breakout rooms within Zoom and have you brainstorm assignment ideas. So pick one of the 4 UN sustainability goals and start thinking about what pedagogical practices will you be using. right? What online tools will you be using? About 10 minutes into it, we're going to swap some team members between the different breakout rooms so you can get some peer feedback. You can explain perhaps what you're going to propose to do and get feedback from another team member. To capture your ideas, we recommend that you use the whiteboard feature, but you can use anything. You can use a Word document, right? With the whiteboard feature, the nice thing is that either one or the entire team can annotate when you use the viewing options. After the peer feedback, we're going to come back because it's nice to get a little break to think about other things, because that's your brain is still working about your issue. And then after a little brain break, we're going to go back to our breakout rooms and refine the details of our assignments. And then, of course, just as Dee mentioned, we're going to have a showcase. Show me what you have come up with. Let's share the whiteboard, share maybe a PowerPoint slide, maybe a Word document. And then we're going to end with, of course, we have John with us, so we have to have the reflection, right? So many of you mentioned that for deep learning, we need the reflection. So we apologize. You also mentioned that for deep learning, you require time. That is one element that we're really limited on because we have only 90 minutes. So we would love to have spent the entire day with you designing this, creating solutions for a World on Fire assignment, but we're short on time, so we're not going to be able to do as much as we can, but hopefully you'll have something, you'll have a starting point. So again, and of course we will, some of you have already signed up for Slack, so I sent the invitation today. If you use it, it's available to get some peer feedback outside of your teams. If not, no worries. So I'm showing the slide again. This is the part where you're going to brainstorm, right, for about 10 minutes with in your teams. I'm going to stop sharing and start putting everybody in your teams. It may be a good idea to write the four UN sustainability goals. And please remember that this slide is also available in Google Drive, so you can always refer to it. I sent a link to the Google Drive. And John, you had another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted you to maybe just take a few seconds to explain the whiteboard.
Yes. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. And I'm going to have you follow along with me. So now you should be able to see at the bottom the share screen green button. If you click the share screen button at the very top, the second option from the left is a whiteboard. And then you can you can share that whiteboard. We're seeing Nicola's whiteboard right now. So notice if you go to view options, or one of the options is annotate. So now I can say, hello, Nicola, right? And I can draw, right? And all of you can do that as well. So you can do that in your breakout teams. So Nicola, if you could start, or maybe some of you can start annotating and playing with the idea. And I'm going to open up all the breakout rooms, and then some of you will have to be assigned by hand. So it will take me a few minutes to put you into the breakout rooms. And there will be Mary Vaughn, JD Bowers, Scott, Susan, and John will stay in the main room, and their interaction will be captured in the video, just FYI. Very good. So, John, I think
We have our group.
Mary Vaughn, John, JD, Susan, Scott. So you're going to be working. I'm going to be in the background. I'm not participating.
Okay. All right.
But, lead on.
So let's in our group, let's figure out who's going to be the recorder. Who feels really most comfortable with using the whiteboard feature, for example?
Not yet.
Anybody?
I never used it. I'll give it a go. I mean, I do have paper here in case things go terribly off.
Yeah, give it a go. You see the share screen button?
Yeah, I'll open it up.
At the bottom?
There we go.
If you use the share screen button and whiteboard feature,
Okay.
if you move your mouse around up at the very top, you'll see speaker view options. And that's where you can select text, for example, to keep your,
Okay.
and then you can write. It should open up a box. There you go.
I'm a terrible typist.
So Susan, why don't you record our chat?
I will do.
So remember the assignment, if you don't mind my repeating it, is to basically to design an assignment that would help students engage in deep learning using some of the things that we've talked about that would help result in that kind of deeper learning, significant learning. And then eventually we'll get up here from another group that's going to come and visit us and give some feedback on our ideas. And then eventually we'll go back into our break room and refine the assignment and then showcase it, right? So the floor is yours. We need to decide first off which of the 4 topical areas intrigue us the most to design an assignment for.
Well, maybe the reduced inequalities because of everything that is happening right now in the world with the, the black, how are they called?
Black Lives Matter?
Yes, those demonstrations and all those kind of things. I think students would find that very interesting because it's so actual right now.
Yeah. So everybody okay with that in the group? For us to design an assignment that would be within the umbrella of those kinds of issues, reducing inequalities, inclusiveness, etc. So, what kind of an assignment can we think of that would engage students in deeper learning?
think works really well about having been told to think about all 4 of the sustainability goals is just how much interplay there will be between them. So, even if we're thinking about reducing inequalities, I have a lot of students in my honors college who are pre-med and going into nursing, and often they're coming from families, so they're first gen, or they're at least first generation American. Their parents have been educated abroad. And so I think I'm glad we're not focused on health and well-being, because I think for them that tends to get pigeonholed into biology. But what I like about the inequalities is recognizing that I think a lot of our students will be appreciative of how inequalities play out in different ways, explaining why their families came here, or explaining family dynamics that mean that the girls have to live at home, but the boys can go away to college. And that there's just inherent inequalities that will resonate with them. And how this will play off, how these different topics will play off one another, particularly when we're thinking about a world on fire and the climate crisis, let alone the pandemic. As for an assignment, I'll type.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful to just narrow the frame of reference down to, are we doing this program-wide? Is this something for a specific class? If it's for a class, is it a class that's thematically focused on a particular topic, right? Like if we are doing a class on, say, as one of my colleagues teaches, race and eugenics, assignment for that, or if it's a class for, say, a general first-year honors seminar that I think that...
We're just introducing ourselves and talking about our feedback, and we already chose the goal. Now we're coming to the point.
Talking about pedagogy now.
Our watchdog came.
Just checking in if you have any questions for me. You remember the goal, the design and assignment, right? Interdisciplinary or deep learning. You have your goal. What's your goal?
Reduced inequalities.
Yes, terrific.
How much time do we have?
I don't know. No, 10 minutes from when we started. So
very few minutes left.
Very few minutes, yes. Yes. So anyway, we're just, we're giving you an outline. We're not going to have a lot of substance at the end, but it would need more time, right? I'll leave you to it. Bye.
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 That could be Black, that could be anybody's perspectives. It could certainly be Native Americans. I often also have my students write an op-ed as an assignment rather than a research paper. An op-ed is kind of a middle ground.
Hi. Hi. How are we doing? Do you guys have a cause selected yet?
Well, we're working on it. I have been proposing that we look at the relationship between climate change and pandemics.
Awesome, awesome. So we don't have a lot of time. What we wanted to do is outline a process, right? That would require a little bit more time to end up with a meaningful product at the end. But I'm here just to check if you have any questions. All good?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll leave you to it then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
At the University of Missouri, we have a very conflicted history with race on this campus. And so several buildings are named for people who objected to integration. We have several slave owners who were founders of the institution. Students come here and don't necessarily, they're not choosing the institution based upon its history, they're choosing the institution based upon a lot of other contemporary factors. So that's often eye-opening. So I do think, Scott, I appreciate it, but I think that there are some general things.
We're wrapping up our 10 years for our QEP, and for those in the southern United States, your QEP is your Quality Enhancement Plan, which is a college-wide initiative which is required by our accrediting body, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. So, Leah, I'm sure you're involved. I'm sure you know exactly about the QEP being in Arkansas. ours has been service learning. And so since experiential learning in general is such a big part of honors, often a big part of honors education. Hi, Beata. Wonder if we could partner the...
You're right. That is an assignment that transposes well to most, definitely any humanities class, I'd imagine, and probably even other, you could make it work for, you know, all sorts of different classes. And I like that idea because it's something that you can construct a model and then flesh out that model and then transpose that model to different contexts, different generalized.
If I may, one of the things that I like about what we're talking about so far, you know, within the context of deep learning pedagogical strategies is, if you look at D. Fink's work, he talks about how important it is, of course, to start with an outcome first, you know, what do you want students to learn and do, and then work backwards over how am I going to help the students get there. And he talks about the importance of having parts of an assignment or activities that are both in class and out of class. And he uses a kind of a stair-step model for that, you know, so that you want to do things that are in class and you want to do something out of class. And you want to do something in class, you want to do something out of class. For one thing, that helps to drive home the subtle message that learning doesn't just happen in the classroom. But, you know, JD's ideas about getting the students to do surveys, to interviews of each other, perhaps even going outside the classroom and going out into the community and seeing how race affects different folks in different parts of the community. You know, there's always liabilities with that, but I think that that can be a very powerful enhancement to deep learning, you know.
We did something similar going back to the, you know, surveying the community, where I taught a class in 2016 leading up to the election on, with a colleague, team taught as a historian, and I'm a philosopher, on political campaign rhetoric. And we went out and took students to polling stations and didn't do exit polls because we didn't want to get into the mess of that, but we did do questionnaire on where they got their content and how the rhetoric informed some of their thinking. I think you could do something similar with all sorts of questions on race. Obviously, there's a challenge now with a pandemic of a lot of people don't want to get close to you. And, you know, that's, I think, one of the challenges with how do you make these things co-curricular and extracurricular components while still respecting that for a lot of us, a lot of things are going to be virtual. Even if the class is in person, you're not going to want students to go meet people, you know, face to face often.
Yeah. remember that the larger context for the work that we're doing here, of course, is the online world, online environment. We're trying to help, you know, help us think about creating deep learning experiences in a virtual way. So that's something else to consider, you know. So if we go with the idea of creating an assignment that it perhaps is not just a traditional formal paper, but something else that could be written, that could easily, of course, be shared. You're doing it right now using the whiteboard feature, for example, where that could be co-constructed. Because there is a way, it gets a little bit more complicated, but there is a way that all of us could be annotating this document that Susan is creating right now. If you go up to the...
It could only help.
Yeah. Again, it's under view options to annotate. And so you can have different people in a small group add their own ideas in the document. But I think I like that idea of a document, of an assignment that would engage students in some writing, that would perhaps virtually engage them in some kind of collaboration. You can use things like Kahoot to get some surveys going. Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool idea.
I'm going to start swapping the team members. So JD, I'm going to move you to a different room And you're going to get
Baby, bye.
He will come back. He will come back. Sorry, GD, if you could.
So John, when you're talking about sort of the group writing and collaboration, why don't we think, it would be useful for me to think about the sort of the dynamics of this and the size of this. Are we thinking that we would break a class down into small groups to produce something together, or would they be working on one project as a class, perhaps with different elements? So you've got breakout rooms for people to figure out certain parts of it, and then they come back together. I mean, in your experience, is there a model for better learning with shared writing? Because I find that my students tend to start editing. They don't think big ideas. They tend to micromanage one another's writing, and then no one is happy.
Yeah, that's true. I think that I've used, not in an online manner, but a face-to-face manner. I've used both approaches. You know, where you have students working on different parts of, let's say, a singular constructed essay. They work on separate parts and then try to bring it all together. And I've also done the other way, use the other process where all the students together are swapping ideas, and you're right. They do tend to focus on what they think I'm going to be focusing on, which is, you know, the spelling and the grammar and so on. So, you know, that, even though I tell them that doesn't matter.
Dee?
Yes. Hi.
Could I have you leave this room and go to the main room to provide them some feedback, please?
Okay.
And we'll come back later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Poof.
And you have Clark here to provide some insights. Thank you. I'll leave you to it.
Okay, thank you.
I assume she's going to make me go away because I can't make myself go.
If you could leave the breakout room.
Oh, I just have to click leave room. Sorry.
Yes. Leave it to them, up to them, how they work with the information that they got from the survey, from their research or whatever, and that they present it in a way that suits them. So
yeah,
it could be a writing piece, but it could also be a video in which they show what they learned.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I love that idea, because one of my favorite co-talent videos was the one featuring what the students in Denmark did when they created a podcast.
Yeah.
And they were very excited, and they said, we learned more from the freedom to create this podcast with some guidance than anything else, you know? So yeah, so maybe our assignment could give some options, you know, a group writing. You can do this through some group writing. You can do it through creating a video. You can do it by creating a podcast. Maybe even some kind of creative demonstration, a dance or piece of music.
I think what you see right now in online education is that it has to be a bit entertaining or something, because only listening to something or only reading things is not stimulating for the students. So you have to present it in an original manner. And I think that variation, that some groups would choose for a podcast and others would write something and others would dance or would do something creative, would engage more people because of the variation.
Yeah.
Right. Dee is here to, if you wanted to utilize her insights from another team. You're muted, Dee.
Sorry about that. Are you asking me to look at this assignment that your group created and comment on it, or tell you what we did?
No, comment on, provide insights, your insights to this team's assignment that Susan has displayed on the whiteboard. That would be terrific. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to get back together to the main room for our brain break.
Okay. Right. So what I suggest is maybe either Susan and Mary Vaughn and Scott, if you can figure out a way to summarize for Diane the assignment that we're thinking about.
Well, Diane, so far we have a structure for an assignment, and that what we're hoping to do is get students to work in groups within a course. And then they can undertake a project that would be most meaningful to them. So they could write, they could create a podcast or video. We talked about options. What we seem to have not done yet is actually constructed what it is they will make this about. So we still need to sort of figure out that topic or the question or the prompt. So if you'd like to share that with us, that'd be grand.
I would say, if you really want my opinion, let the students decide it. Put them together and say, out of this particular subtopic, which piece of this feels most meaningful, most authentic to you, the thing you care about the most as a group? Because as we know, they're not going to do a good job unless they're passionate about themselves. I mean, they may force it, but they'll do a better job and they'll enjoy it more and learn more if they're passionate about it. So I would say let them bubble that to the top and then ask them for maybe 3 ways they could come together as a group and come up with a product that could be useful to another group. You're about to take whatever product you come up with, we're going to give this to another group of students to go from there. Assess what you did, add their own flair to it, add their own concerns. So then they're working toward a purpose. I've got to make something that's meaningful so this next group does well too. Progressive problem solving, I said. I just created a new thing.
Hey, you could write the next book.
Okay, I accept.
I like that. I like that feedback. We hadn't considered that.
I think it's good because of the part of the freedom, because our honor students always appreciate the freedom very much. So I think it's very good suggestion to leave it up to them to choose which part of, well, in this case, reducing inequalities interests them most. So you give them this goal, this development goal, and then leave it up to them what kind of inequalities they will focus on.
With feedback from the professors as well. I mean, of course, there should always be some component of that. If they want to have a bake sale, I might steer them away from such a thing and do something more deep and meaningful. But my guess is, at least all the honors students I know, they'll probably come up with something we hadn't even thought of that's even more poignant.
So the other teams will be coming back in about 30 seconds or so to John, Susan. We're going to take a little brain break, and we're running as always behind. It always takes longer.
Always. Susan, be sure to save the white.
Save the whiteboard display.
Okay. We have saved. Show and find. I'm going to go look to see where I saved it. I'll be back.
It will be in document Zoom, right? All your whiteboards, if you save them, they will be in document Zoom, and there will be a JPEG image of your whiteboard available. So if you could stop.
If we didn't specifically tell it to save, it's gone?
I think I had it automatically saved. So could you, Leah, if you could please take a look at it? I think I had it auto saved in the settings.
Okay, so can you remind me, how do I find it?
If you could look at your documents.
In your computer.
Yes, on your computer in the documents Zoom folder.
Beate, everybody is back, I think.
Yes. Susan, if you could stop sharing. Stop sharing, Susan.
Yes, I am. Whoops.
I think I've received that same chastisement sometimes. Stop sharing things.
Well, I am earnestly trying to stop sharing, I promise.
Good.
Technology. Oh, technology.
Yes.
There you go.
There, well,
So what we have planned, which we're going to accelerate a little bit, is our brain break. And John, if you would like to take us through an accelerated version of the brain break.
Yep. During the HIFI sessions, which we have done over the last several years, we always take some time to do some physical activity, because we know from a lot of neuroscience that exercise is very important in creating an environment in our brains for deep learning. And don't forget that not just exercise, but good nutrition and sleep and water, if you can believe it. Those are things that have been described as being very important for deep learning. So we always bring in a little bit of physical activity. So we thought it would be great to have after your hard work in the first session, because you're going to go back and refine the assignment and then showcase it. We have a little physical break, okay? So many of you know some of the great work that's being done out there on mindfulness. So we thought we'd just take a quick little break to be relaxed and to be mindful.
Allow yourself to be still for a moment and start breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. Don't worry about how loud your breathing is or if anyone can hear it. And there's no need to try and ignore any noise or distractions going on around you, or to try too hard to clear your mind. Imagine yourself as a rock in the middle of a stream. All the noise and commotion that may or may not be going on around you just washes over you without having any effect. Focus on your breath. Think about how anything that has negatively affected your day up until this point. And with each out-breath, you are simply going to imagine any unnecessary stress these events are causing you to feel. Just ease away. Breathe in and observe how you feel. Breathe out and feel it easing from your mind. Now, still breathing deeply, take a moment to visualize how you want the rest of the day to go. Imagine achieving any goals and successes at the end of the day and how that will make you feel. Create a mental picture of what that looks like and take a moment to play that out in your mind. Whenever you're ready, bring the exercise to a close and open your eyes.
John.
Yes. Okay, so hopefully that helped clear your minds a little bit after the group work. And before we go back in, we thought that we would ask you if you have any particular burning questions at this point about deep learning or about pedagogical approaches, and to put those questions into the chat. And it's very difficult, as I said at the outset, to keep track of what's going on in video and then also check the chat at the same time, but we'll do the best we can. I think Beata's going to try to sort of take mostly the lead on that and try to respond as best as we can to what you post into the chat. So we're going to give you maybe a minute to post any burning questions. Don't feel compelled, but if you have anything to say or ask, now would be a good time to do it before we move on. Okay.
Very good. So just as a reminder, we're going to go back into our teams and think through further our assignments. I noticed that some of you were using the whiteboard and you are not able to find the whiteboard, which should be in your document Zoom folder, auto-saved, whoever was using it. If it's not there, my apologies. Perhaps we can give it some more time, few more minutes. We are a little bit behind. It's 10:13. We're finishing at 10:30. So just a little bit of time to think through the assignments more, and perhaps we can, at the end, we can have a couple of teams share the assignments that you have come up with, the ideas of the assignments that you have come up with, and end with a reflection. So I'm going to, do we all remember the assignment that we are working on? Yes, do I need to show it again or not? We're good?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let me open up the breakout rooms again, and I will reassign you, put everybody back to where they started.
Would you like me to put the shared or the saved whiteboard up for us to consult, or do we remember it?
Oh, if you have it, if you can find it.
By some miracle I did, so.
Great. I made a picture because I thought if you can't find it, we'll have the picture. But
yes, I did the same, but then there it was in the folder, just as Beata said it would be, so.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I think in some place like Utah, it's,
Is JD
what,
here?
we're 89% white population.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. No, I like the idea. What I work normally is with individual memory, but also how that individual memory is shaped by your
a few minutes, I guess, in this second group meeting to actually compose an assignment, an activity, and then present it. So I'm not sure which one of you would want to be the spokesperson for the, but that was something we can figure out here in a minute. So in terms of constructing an assignment, what do you think? What should be our next step? Oh, I should mention, JD, that the feedback we got from Diane was to maybe have the students develop the topic on which they want to engage, in either writing or creating video or a podcast, or just different ways for students to represent their learning would be part of the assignment.
I'm all for giving options for submission. In fact, I do that. You can do an op-ed. You can do it as a written, or you can do it, every 60 minutes episode ends with an op-ed, right? So I think that works. Especially, I noticed in the chat, somebody asked about how do you do some of this asynchronously. And I think that if you're allowing students to go with their strengths, so long as you've equally designed the expected outcomes, which was one of the videos was about, how do you design effective assessment for all of this deep learning. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
and so, I equate a certain number of words to a certain number of minutes for videos versus writing. So, yeah. But then what's the assignment? So. Mary Yvonne, you should pick. What do you, Susan and I know each other, so we've presented together.
But what are you asking me?
What would you do for the assignment?
Yeah, I don't know, because I was looking at our whiteboard. We have the focus, we have the course, yeah, and the form. They can choose the way of presenting it, the goal, and now we have to formulate a concrete assignment.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it might be helpful to give them something fairly narrow here, because we've given them a lot of options. So I think there's a lot of room for them to go. But if they're going to pick one of the goals, maybe we want to go back to JD's idea of having a very local focus. So, you know, if they're going to select one of these goals, and, you know, ours was sort of reducing inequalities, where can they find a topic on campus? And then how can they refine that to perhaps involve speaking to, you know, a half dozen people as a group, and then formulating sort of a response to what they've heard as perhaps a policy statement for the university, something so that we're trying to give them a pretty clear path to how to execute something that's giving them a lot of freedom in terms of how they go about creating the final product.
I think that's a good idea. The only thing is for the campus, well, in the Netherlands, they are not allowed to go to the campus right now. And then it would be so nice if they, well, it's for the online learning, I think it's difficult right now. That would be very suitable when they could go there, because then they actually can walk around and see what happens and read what kind of things we are on the boards in the hallways, or the names of the buildings, as you mentioned, and those kind of things. I think it would be so interesting if they really could go out of the buildings. And for now, this focus on their own campus is maybe a bit difficult. Maybe you could choose focus on their own village, or maybe the neighborhood they live in, or that maybe is for us in the Netherlands would be more suitable right now, because they can't go to school, and it's for them very frustrating that they can't go to the campus. Yeah. So
I'm seeing a lot of change.org kind of proposals from students, both here and at several other universities. You know, so very specific things that students want changed on their campuses. And I think that they're sort of finding, they're chatting. I find that they're chatting about these issues. They're raising these agendas. You know, so one at my alma mater, they want to change the name of a building and an award that was named for the president of the college, who was a Confederate general. Here, they want us to get rid of the Thomas Jefferson statue and gravestone marker. I've also seen one here that they want us to change our administrative structure. So I think that there are still ways in the digital world for students to connect on these issues, and to then choose. You know, I like John's point that if we stay local, that also for me addresses one of the big questions I often get is how can I, just a student, make a difference? How can I make a change? And sometimes, you know, you say, you know, you don't change the world by trying to change the world. You change the world locally. Yeah. And you start small. So I think they could easily survey their fellow students as to what are the issues you want us to address, and then how do we collectively form some way to address that. And then that could lead to a survey, that could lead to a petition, that could lead to, you know, here the quest to remove the statue actually got the attention of the president of the university. He was forced to call a meeting. Yeah. So I think that there are still things we can do.
So when we come back together here in just a few seconds, we have maybe a minute or 2 minutes at most to share what our assignment would be. And I think that we can maybe just do it on the fly. I think, Susan, I think you're pretty articulate.
Thank you.
You can maybe identify what we've been thinking about in terms of an assignment and how to engage the students and what kinds of activities. Do that?
I certainly can. You know, if I can find a document on Zoom, it seems like the sky is the limit today. So, yeah. No, I mean, JD, you know, on your point, my university is expecting some serious protests when people do finally get back together. You know, and I actually think the administration has been doing a really good job of managing things, but I don't think that will be sufficient. So.
Yeah, I think it's easy to manage right now.
So I think we're all back, Beate and John.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I hope you had a little bit more time to think through some of your assignments. And I would love the opportunity for all of you to share what you have come up with. So we have the Google Drive. If there are any artifacts that you have created, a Word document, a whiteboard, a PowerPoint slide, whatever you have come up with, or maybe you didn't come up with anything and would be willing, somebody on each team would be willing to capture the ideas that were discussed in a Word document or in some artifact and then post it to our Google Drive so everybody could see what each team has created for their assignment. I think that would be tremendous. So at this point, I'm just going to ask for a couple of volunteers. There were some folks who are working in the main room. Susan, is it okay if I call on you to share the assignment that you guys have created?
Absolutely. So we worked as a group, and then Diane Snow joined us and offered some helpful feedback. So we thought that it would be useful to give the students the freedom to decide upon the development goal that interested them the most, and that their group, their class would address. So they would have that freedom. And then we thought that the students should compose a response to that development goal in an agreed upon format, agreed upon by the group. That could be a paper, it could be a podcast, a video, an op-ed, or another medium. So the goal was to give them choice in topic and then give them choice in medium. And then the assignment itself, we had hoped to focus on a local issue so that they would, perhaps this will be better executed when campuses reopen, or perhaps they will be able to do this using the sort of some of the meetup software they use now. But having the students focus on a local issue of inequality or whatever topic they chose upon. And then perhaps they could create a policy statement for the university, a survey, a change.org position. But the goal, you know, as JD said, it was really to have the students figure out ways in which they can make a difference, ways in which they can change their institution. So that was the goal of the project.
So any other volunteer? Anybody would like to share their assignment that they have come up with?
I'll share ours.
Yes, Leah.
So our group decided to focus on the Millennium Development Goals 3 and 10. And our idea was to break students into disciplinary-based teams, so healthcare students in a team, humanities students in a team, etc. And even try to maybe create diverse teams across institutions and even maybe internationally to give students a better idea and practice working with diverse teams. And then partner them with organizations working within the pandemic to create some sort of a video public service announcement to assist that organization's messaging goals regarding the pandemic. And so we were thinking that potential organizations might be health departments, food banks, homeless shelters, faith-based organizations devoted to outreach, community organizers, municipal institutions, and that we would encourage the students to use their perspectives, worldviews, skills, and language to create a video that reaches a target audience identified with the partner organization, and that this would be a way to also bring in experiential learning remotely, and that we could assess this using the AAC&U experiential learning rubric. And that the technology possibilities, you know, might be things that the students are much more familiar with than me, certainly, when it comes to TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, etc. So that was it in a nutshell.
Terrific. Thank you so much for sharing. And we would love to hear about each team's assignment. So again, I encourage you to submit something to our Google Drive. And now we're going to have John wrap it up with a final reflection.
Glad to do it. We would probably take a little bit more time doing the reflection, but we're almost right at the end of our promised time, and we'll probably have to go a minute over or two. I hope you forgive us for that. But as I think about what we have done here, I go back to the slide that you saw earlier, that was the slide from the Corwin folks about designing for deep learning. And I'm thinking about how we have in very specific ways actually modeled the design for deep learning through the activities that we've done in this seminar. So that for me is, you know, part of critical reflection, you know, what I call reflective learning moments, when you think about how is it that we learned and not just what we learned. So as I go back and look at that, that slide, I think about how, I don't know if maybe Beata can put the slide up again. But remember that it had to do with creating the virtual learning environment that would be conducive to deeper learning. And of course, you know, we've done that together as a group, working online to respect each other, to bring in peer feedback. That's part of the learning partnerships that they were talking about. And they, remember, put a lot of emphasis on the pedagogical strategies that you would use. We used, again, a lot of collaboration. We constructed an assignment together. We, in so many ways, played to the different passions and interests that we had. We had pre-selected the 4 areas for you, but there were actually 17. And of course, we've leveraged the digital technology. I mean, Leah's report shows you how much they thought about as a group, the different kinds of strategies, digital strategies that they could use to help students produce some of the deep learning that we're after. So in many ways, as I reflect upon this seminar, you know, we lived this design for deep learning. So what we're hoping is that you will go back, use all of the materials that are in the Google Drive, including the video of this very live session and the chat responses and all of the additional documents that are there. I hope you will find them useful as you think about creating courses in this very strange, disruptive online world that we find ourselves in today. And I will stop with that, and thank you very much for participating. We hope it was useful. We hope you will stay in touch. You can use, for example, the Slack link that Beata shared with you earlier in an earlier email to stay in touch as a community. Don't forget that not only deep learning, but community and bounded freedom are parts of the model that we have been using for HIFI and that we have used for HIFLO as well. Any last words, Marka or Beata, before we sign off? Because we're just a little 2 minutes over.
Oh, thank you all very, very much. Very inspiring, very nice. And it's always a little bit lonely when you have had this group meeting and then you go away. But know that we are connected, even in this online world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay safe and
Take
stay
care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Aloha. One last.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It was great. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, John, Beata.
Thank you.
How do I find the Google Drive? I didn't sign up with a Gmail account. Does anybody know?
If you don't, I would have to Google how do you access, if you only have do you have any other email?
I do have one. I use my work email to sign up for this.
Yes.